that tradition, that tradition, that tradition, that tradition is all the same shit. It's all illegal. That goes away. But it's no longer we have to achieve the context that's that, or it's output context, or run around and keep everybody straight and everything else, etc. But then what is constitutional stuff? Integrity, flavor, sight, perspective, etc. Is allowed. And so, in a sense, that debate continues, but it has nothing to do with things that aren't and what they're making, nor as well what is the actuality of the Constitution. So as that fans out and whatever else, those things that are not quite that get filtered, but I'd much rather have that than this assembly and entourage of treason. I can't accept the treason. And so then, in terminology, whatever the back and forth and whatever else, it's the slave economic that is leaving. We've never had that in the United States. And then they did that. So there's that course of history that's particularly profoundly damaging. But I went through using the actual Constitution and pushed all of that out. By the time that we did that, the people who had red hands were the people who had red hands. Separately, they were doing other things. But the idea that these cultures and traditions were always attacking the Constitution, so they're deserving that momentum, is completely kaput by virtue of the fact that they're cannibalist leeches. At that point, the economic theory of what is universality, as was determined by everybody in the world, which is basically anti-cannibalism. You can't be cannibals, was automated to the point that its fluidity and, well, its fluency pushes out what was that slave economic. So in that same sense, the United States then, in a sense, forces the economic adaptation associated with the usage of the dollar. The reason that that's important is because beyond that and above that higher stair, the philosophy, so to speak, of what is the number one becomes more important. But that is a sidestep project again. So anything that goes on in economic terms is not in some sort of, I have to transact in some sort of heat transfer the constitutional status of the Constitution to myself and carry the weight and all of that shit. You just need to not break the law. And then everything's fine. So if everybody parks on top of enlightenment with no slave economic, no do-si-dos, and whatever else, that is, in fact, the constitutional constant or the regularity. What you would then produce automatically are, in fact, constitutional units. So there's not this backtracking and side swivel and whatever else, and it's by virtue of that that everybody's equal. It's afforded much differently. It's not a dictation, it's a realization. And that realization is so solid at this point that it cannot be undone. We're not making the war.